On my wedding day, my dad stood up to give a toast but instead introduced my real father, fresh out of prison, and that was only the beginning of the nightmare. I always thought my wedding day would be about me and Emily, just the two of us, standing at the center of everything, surrounded by warmth and love and the kind of joy that doesn't have sharp edges. I'd imagine laughter that rolled easily across the room. Glasses clinking in celebration, both our families melting into each other like they'd always belonged together. Sure, I knew weddings came with chaos, with tiny disasters and unexpected hiccups, but I never pictured those things as anything more than charming imperfections. The sort of stories you retell years later with a smile. I didn't imagine the chaos coming in the form of a confession that would split my life into before the ink on the marriage certificate was even dry. The day had started beautifully, the kind of crisp autumn afternoon where sunlight filters through thinning branches and turns their golden, where fallen leaves crunch underfoot in satisfying little bursts and the breeze carries just enough chill to make you grateful for the soft hum of outdoor heaters. The manner we'd chosen for the venue sat like something out of an old painting on the edge of town. Ivy clinging to its brick like a living tapestry, its tall windows catching the afternoon light in glimmers. Inside, the wooden floors spoke in gentle creaks, their sound mixing with the muted thrum of music and conversation. I remember thinking, as I watched Emily glide through the room in her lace gown, how surreal it felt that she was mine. That we'd managed to find each other in a world that doesn't make a habit of handing out happy endings. Her hair was pinned in a way that looked careless but had clearly taken hours, wisps falling just so against her cheeks, and I caught myself staring more than once, the edges of reality blurring as though she were lit by her own private sun. My father, Harold, had been quiet that morning. He's never been much for words, more comfortable fixing a broken radiator or changing a car's alternator than making small talk, but there'd been something different in his silence that day. A weight I couldn't quite identify. Still, I didn't think much of it, not until he approached me during the reception, after the plates had been cleared and the first round of toasts had wound down, and said he wanted to give the final speech of the night. It caught me off guard. Public speaking wasn't his style, and for a brief, naive moment I felt touched, assuming this was his way of stepping out of his comfort zone to mark the occasion. The music faded as he rose from his chair, the subtle shift in the room as people noticed him standing, glasses in hand, eyes turning his way. I leaned back, ready to hear a mix of dry humor and awkward sentiment, maybe a story about the first time he met Emily, or something about me as a kid that would make me roll my eyes but secretly warm my heart. Instead, he started with the words that cracked my world open. Before I start, I need to tell you all something my son doesn't know. The sound of a few chuckles floated up, the polite, expectant kind, people bracing for an embarrassing anecdote. I smiled along, but something in Emily's face shifted. Barely perceptible but sharp enough to cut through my anticipation. Her smile dipped at one corner, her gaze faltered, and I felt a faint unease tug at me. Harold's voice was steady but carried a gravity that made the hair on my neck lift. Luke, you've always thought I was just your dad, but the truth is, I'm not. And the man who is here today. The laughter evaporated instantly, leaving a silence that pressed in from all sides. My pulse thudded in my ears. I scanned the room, confused, and then Harold's hand lifted, gesturing toward a table in the back. I followed his motion to a man I'd noticed earlier. Someone I'd assumed was a guest plus one, tall and broad-shouldered, with a face I couldn't place but that seemed to look at me like it knew me intimately. His hair was mostly gray, but thick, his jaw square and set in a way that spoke of stubbornness. His eyes were dark to dark and something in them made me feel like I'd walked into a room where all the windows were locked. He stood slowly, gave a small nod, and Harold said, "This is Michael, your biological father." The murmur that rolled through the guests was almost physical, a shift in the air that made me feel off balance. I could hear tiny details, the clink of a fork dropping onto china, the scrape of a chair leg against wood, someone's muffled cough, but they all sounded too loud, like my brain was amplifying them while muting everything else. Emily's hand slipped out of mine. I stared at Michael, waiting for him to laugh, to wave it off, to break whatever strange tension had gripped the room. But he didn't. He just stood there, his expression unreadable, part apology, part something I couldn't name but didn't like. "Why now?" I asked, my voice rough, almost far into my own ears. Harold didn't look away. "Because you deserve the truth before you start your own family. And because Emily already knows." My gaze whipped toward her, and her pale face told me the answer before she even spoke. "You knew?" My voice came out sharper than I meant. She hesitated, then nodded. 6 months. 6 months. My chest tightened as the words sank in. 6 months, and you didn't think to tell me? Her voice was quick, defensive. Michael's my uncle. I mean, not by blood. But he's family. My family. The sentence rattled around in my head. Impossible to settle. So what this? Was all some kind of setup? Not a setup, she said too fast. We just thought, you thought it would be better to drop it in the middle of my wedding. My voice cracked, the sound like something breaking. Harold cleared his throat, the sound rough. It's not what you think. We didn't tell you sooner because Michael's been in prison for most of your life. He got out last year. Prison? The word landed heavy, like lead dropped in my stomach. My mind reached for some kind of explanation, something small enough to make sense of it. Prison for what? The first words from Michael came then, his voice deep, deliberate. Manslaughter. It was complicated. His eyes locked on mine. Your mother visited me 4 years. Harold raised you because I couldn't, but I never stopped wanting to know you. My laugh came out sharp and humorless. And this I gestured to the room, the flowers, the candles, the stunned faces. This was your grand moment. To announce it like you're giving a toast. We thought it would be cathartic. Harold said, we thought to you. Thought wrong, I cut in, my words edged with something between rage and disbelief. The silence after that was heavier than before, the kind that makes you aware of every breath you take. Emily reached for my hand, but I stepped back like her. Touch might burn me. Don't. My voice was low, final. The rest of the night blurred around me. I remember the music starting up again, a too cheerful song that clashed violently with the atmosphere, people murmuring to each other in corners. My best man watching me like he wasn't sure if he should drag me out or punch someone. I walked out before dessert, still in my tux, the cold air outside hitting me like a slap but somehow easier to breathe than the air inside. The lights from the manor spilled weakly across the lawn. And I kept walking until they were just a glow behind me. The next morning, I packed a bag and left. I didn't go back for my things right away, didn't answer Emily's calls or texts. A week later, divorce papers arrived efficient, almost businesslike. She didn't contest. I thought that was the end of it, that whatever that night had unleashed was behind me. But 2 months later, a letter showed up in my mailbox. No return address, just my name in an unfamiliar hand. Inside was a photograph, faded at the edges, of me as a baby sitting on a man's lap. The man was Michael. On the back, in my mother's handwriting, were the words, we told you too late, but we had to protect you from him. That night, I sat at my computer and typed Michael's name into the search bar. The first results were clean to clean, almost like someone had scrubbed them, but deeper down, in dusty corners of court archives and old newspaper clippings, I found it. The manslaughter conviction wasn't the result of a bar fight gone wrong or some tragic accident like Harold had implied. It was for the death of a toddler boy, my half-brother. The date was 2 years before I was born. I stared at the screen until the words blurred, my mind circling the same dark questions over and over. I don't know what's worse, that my mother kept it from me my entire life, or that on the day I was supposed to begin my future, I learned my past was something I might never want to understand. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this.